Yes, son. I can see. I can see.
He came on the set as a 12-year-old boy and called the various members of the crew, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I'll tell you something, if I may, about that boy. You talk about a hero. He's my hero.
He was once the embodiment of the ideal American father on television, tall, righteous, raising a child alone in the dangerous Wild West. With his legendary Winchester rifle, Chuck Connors in The Rifleman didn't just uphold justice, he safeguarded the childhood memories of millions. But what no one expected was this. The hero carried a secret he had kept hidden his entire life. No one could have imagined that the man once invited by Soviet leaders and gifted a rifle would later be blacklisted behind the scenes in Hollywood. No one would believe that, on screen, he was the man who never missed a moment when his son needed him. But in real life, it was his own biological children who often felt resentment, chose to stay away, and ultimately confessed a bitter truth about their father. And even more shocking, just before his death, Chuck Connors broke his vow of silence and revealed a truth that could destroy the image of America's father he had spent decades crafting. So, what did he say before he closed his eyes for the last time? Why would someone so beloved be turned away by an entire industry? And what made the life of an icon become a string of secrets no one dared to expose until he was gone? If you ever watched The Rifleman and thought you knew Chuck Connors, this video might make you reconsider. For the first time, we see Chuck Connors not through a director's lens, but through what he left behind. Unfinished, painful, and irreversible. You won't want to miss what comes next. Though he was the model father of the Wild West on screen, in real life, Chuck Connors was born into a completely different setting, the working-class neighborhoods of Brooklyn, New York. His real name was Kevin Joseph Aloysius Connors, born in 1921 to an Irish immigrant family during the depths of the Great Depression. His family had nothing but the calloused hands of his father, a construction worker, and the Catholic faith they held on to like a treasure through the hardest of years. From a young age, Chuck was unusually tall for his age, but that wasn't an advantage in a place where poverty and violence were everyday realities. He once recalled that his height and strikingly different appearance made him a target for bullying. Either take the beating or fight back, and Connors chose the latter. Baseball and basketball became his only escape, not just from the streets, but toward a future he hadn't dared to imagine. At Adelphi Academy High School, Connors earned an athletic scholarship. It was here he began to shape the character of a man who refused to be defined by circumstance, determined to overcome poverty with his own strength and grit. Later, he attended Seton Hall University, where he played basketball and served as a leading pitcher for the baseball team. The nickname Chuck was born from a simple, everyday habit. Whenever he played, he'd shout to his teammates, "Chuck it to me! Throw me the ball!" No one at the time, not even Connors himself, imagined that Chuck would one day become a name synonymous with a television icon for decades. But life never moves in a straight line. From a kid struggling on the dusty playgrounds of Brooklyn to a promising student athlete, Chuck Connors was gradually stepping out of poverty's shadow. Yet even as he left the poor streets behind, he never forgot them, nor the fear, the fights, the moments he wanted to give up, but never did. And it was from those memories of a boy constantly bracing himself against the world that the image of Lucas McCain would later be infused with such strength, determination, and grit. For Chuck Connors, the past didn't just define him, it haunted him, like the echo of a Western rifle that followed him into the final years of his life. Before becoming America's father in The Rifleman, Chuck Connors had already lived a life no less remarkable, though not in acting, but in sports. After leaving Seton Hall University, Connors signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1940. It was every American boy's dream, to play for one of the most legendary baseball teams of the time. But fate didn't lay out glory for him there. For 10 long years, he drifted through the minor leagues, from the Newport Dodgers and Mobile Bears to the Montreal Royals. Despite his impressive build and fiery competitive spirit, Connors was called up to the major league just once. That was in 1949. He had a single at-bat with the Brooklyn Dodgers. No hits, no runs, no record. A quiet failure, yet it marked a turning point. Instead of giving up, Connors turned to another arena, professional basketball. He played for the Boston Celtics, becoming one of only 12 athletes in American history to play professionally in both the MLB and NBA. And here, he left behind a near-mythical mark. He became the first player in NBA history to shatter a backboard with a dunk. Then, one afternoon in 1951, while playing baseball in California, his life took an unexpected turn. A film director happened to see Connors clowning around in the dugout, mimicking movie characters, and exclaimed, "That's the Laurence Olivier of the ballpark." Just weeks later, Connors landed his first acting role in the film Pat and Mike, 1952, alongside Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. From that one missed swing years earlier, fate now threw him straight into the heart of Hollywood. From 1952 to 1957, Connors appeared in a series of supporting roles in films like South Sea Woman, The Big Country, and most notably Old Yeller, 1957, Disney's beloved family film, where he portrayed a strict father. It was that performance that caught the eye of the Rifleman producers. They weren't looking for just another cowboy hero. They needed a father who could handle a gun and still know how to hurt. And Chuck Connors, with his 6 feet 5 inches frame, battle-hardened sports background, and world-weary eyes, was exactly what they were looking for. It wasn't a coincidence that Connors' path to acting began through sports failures, because it was those years of rejection, demotion, and being overlooked that allowed him to bring a different kind of man to the screen. Not perfect, but unshakable. And from that moment on, Hollywood was no longer a distant dream. It became the place where Chuck Connors would write the most glorious chapter of his life. In 1958, The Rifleman officially aired. No one, not even Chuck Connors, could have predicted that a modest Western series on ABC would become a national television phenomenon, turning him from a relatively unknown face into a beloved symbol of the American father. As Lucas McCain, a widower raising his young son Mark in 19th century New Mexico, Connors didn't just wield a rifle to fight crime. He taught his son how to be a man, how to love, and how to stand up against injustice. It wasn't just another cowboy show. The Rifleman touched audiences with moments that were simple yet profound, and Connors was the heart of it all. He performed most of his own stunts, from horseback riding to gunfights, rigorously training to handle a customized Winchester rifle, an icon inseparable from the character. Every spin of the gun was choreographed down to the frame. Behind those scenes was a man who had once played pro sports, who had failed, who had been rejected, and who now poured every bit of that real-life experience into bringing a character to life with every breath. Success came fast and hit hard, stunning even Hollywood. Over 5 consecutive seasons, 1958 to 1963, The Rifleman aired 168 episodes, drawing tens of millions of viewers each week. The image of Lucas McCain came to embody conservative values: family, honor, honesty, and resolve, and Chuck Connors, unintentionally, became the face of those ideals. In real life, Connors even invited his athlete friends, like Don Drysdale, Duke Snider, and other sports stars, to appear in episodes, turning The Rifleman into a rare crossover between Hollywood and the athletic world, between entertainment and old-school masculinity. This success didn't just open major doors in Hollywood, it shaped the rest of Connors' career. But like a silent cost, the role of Lucas McCain also became a cage. After the show ended, Connors found it nearly impossible to escape the character's shadow. He received very few roles with similar depth and was often typecast, locked into the image of the cowboy, the father, the hero. Still, Connors never stopped trying to break through his own limits. One of his clearest efforts came with the series Branded, 1965 to 1966, where he played Jason McCord, a military officer dishonorably discharged for cowardice in war, even though the truth was the exact opposite. This wasn't just an action series. It was a veiled indictment of society, how people are judged too quickly for a single moment, how a reputation can seem permanently destroyed. Each episode began with the haunting ritual of Jason being stripped of his military insignia and cast out, a scene of shame that cut to the bone. Connors was no longer the father defending his son with a gun. He was a man stained by dishonor, wandering the West not to fight, but to reclaim his name. The role demanded quiet strength, bitterness, and silent endurance, the very qualities Connors knew intimately from his days in sports, his failures, his abandonment. But his most dramatic transformation came in 1977 when Connors portrayed a white slave owner in Roots, a groundbreaking miniseries that, for the first time, exposed the horrors of slavery to a national American audience. As Tom Moore, Connors appeared with a cold stare, a commanding voice, and a level of cruelty that made him detestable. It was a risky move for a man once adored by the nation to become the face of oppression and injustice. And yet that risk made all the difference. Audiences didn't see Lucas McCain in the slave master. They saw a real actor, brave enough to shed his safe image and delve into psychological complexity. The villainous role earned Connors an Emmy nomination, not because of fame, but for the courage to portray a character that was deeply uncomfortable yet necessary. Between the two roles, one a man dishonored by false accusation, the other a man who inflicted real harm, Chuck Connors revealed range, depth, and a relentless desire to transcend his own shadow. From a failed athlete to a disregarded supporting actor to the face that defined an era of American television, Chuck Connors walked a path no one laid out for him. And along that path, though boxed in, though he never won an Oscar, he still walked it with the resolve of Lucas McCain, who once told his son, "You don't need anyone to say you're a good man as long as you know who you are." His success wasn't measured by gold statues or box office numbers, but by the hearts of viewers who never forgot the image of a father in the western dusk, holding his son after a gunfight. And sometimes that's a legacy stronger than any star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Perhaps in today's cold and practical world of cinema, that kind of legacy matters even more. Behind the image of the ideal father Lucas McCain, Chuck Connors was a man who consistently struggled with the very word family. He married 3 times, and all 3 ended in divorce. But what haunts people isn't the number. It's what happened inside each of those seemingly ideal unions. His first marriage, to Elizabeth Riddell, a Canadian woman he met during World War II, appeared solid, especially since they had 4 sons together. But even within that family, the cracks began to form. Chuck Connors spent most of his time on set, while Elizabeth was left alone to care for the children and endure her husband's unpredictable moods. Neither of them spoke out publicly, but years later, one of his sons revealed to the press he was a father on TV, but at home, he wasn't a father. That brief statement revealed a harsh truth. Chuck Connors wasn't strong or grounded enough to hold on to both the glory of his career and the happiness of his family. The marriage ended in 1961. After the divorce, he openly dated several women, including some former co-stars. His most publicized romance was with Kamala Devi, the Indian-American actress who had starred with him in Geronimo. Their on-screen chemistry spilled into real life, and they married in 1963. But the relationship quickly fell into a cycle of tension. Kamala was modern, independent, and outspoken, while Connors, though not physically abusive, was said to be controlling, traditional, and jealous. Close sources claimed he would lash out when Kamala wore heavy makeup or dressed too flamboyantly in public. The tension peaked when rumors surfaced that Connors was having an affair with a young actress on set. Kamala soon left him and never spoke of that marriage again in any interview. His third marriage was hardly public at all, but insiders described it as brief and quiet because both were too damaged to truly open up. In truth, after turning 50, Connors no longer seemed interested in marriage. He chose to live alone in a large house in Los Angeles, occasionally seeing his children, but those meetings were rarely warm. Worse still, sources from behind the scenes claimed that Connors was often criticized by his sons for being cold and distant. In a private interview in 1988, his eldest son refused to answer any questions about his father. These rumors were never confirmed, but also never denied, and they left the public wondering, was Chuck Connors truly like the father they once adored on screen? And yet, his life wasn't only made of conflict. Chuck Connors once shared an unlikely, almost surreal friendship with Leonid Brezhnev, General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. During a 1973 visit to the U.S., Brezhnev openly declared that he was a superfan of the Rifleman, to the point of wanting to meet Chuck Connors more than any American politician. The meeting played out like a moment of cinematic diplomacy. Connors gifted Brezhnev a customized Winchester rifle, identical to the one from the show, engraved with the message, "From Lucas McCain to a friend." The gift immediately sparked a media storm, leading to Connors being quietly blacklisted by a segment of Hollywood, who accused him of fraternizing with communists. Though never officially blacklisted, he was gradually pushed aside in casting circles, especially for patriotic or heroic roles. What seemed like a harmless gesture ultimately became a quiet turning point that ended the last golden years of his career. Failed relationships, unspoken accusations, and children unwilling to call him father, they all point to one cold truth. Chuck Connors may have been the perfect man on television, but in real life, he was just a man, with all the contradictions, mistakes, and unhealed wounds that came with it. No one knew that Chuck Connors had been carrying a heavy secret for decades, something he only revealed right before his death in a short interview that was never widely released. He admitted he had once wanted to quit acting, not out of boredom, but because he couldn't bear the pressure of living two parallel lives, the hero on screen and the deeply flawed man off it. In the 1980s, his appearances became increasingly rare. A few guest roles, some voiceover work, all fragmented, lost amid a new generation of filmmakers. No one on set called him Lucas McCain anymore. And to younger producers, Chuck Connors was simply a relic of the past. His old friends from sports or television were mostly dead or reclusive. He still carried his towering frame, but in his eyes was a hollowness no one could reach. The man who once dominated American television now lived alone in a small house in Los Angeles, a house without the sound of children, without a woman's voice, without anyone he could call a partner. After 3 failed marriages, Connors never remarried, nor reconciled with any of his former wives. All 4 of his sons, each of them boys, did not live nearby and were virtually absent from any public record or photos during his final years. An old friend of Connors once confided, "He didn't have anyone truly close left. His sports buddies had passed, his colleagues lost touch. And his kids, I don't think he'd spoken to them in years. No scandals, no domestic violence. But it was the prolonged emotional distance, the quiet rift between him and his loved ones, that painted the most tragic picture: an aging man, alone, living among the shadows of his own memories." In his final years, Connors battled advanced lung cancer, the price of more than 40 years of heavy smoking. Diagnosed in 1991, he kept the illness from the public. No wife to care for him, no children by his side. The only person present was a full-time nurse. The only one who heard his labored breathing at night, his bloody coughs, or his sleep-talking about Mark, the name of his son in The Rifleman. Many nights, neighbors saw Connors sitting alone on his porch, watching old episodes on a VHS player. When someone once asked, "Why not call your sons to come live with you?" he gave a faint smile and said, "They've got their own lives now. I raised them to be independent, maybe too well." It was a truth no one wanted to hear, but a living testament to the tragedy. Chuck Connors, the ideal father of America, was never able to hold that role in real life. And in the end, he paid the price with a loneliness colder than he ever expected. Those who once admired Chuck Connors couldn't help but feel a deep ache when seeing him in a rare final video, frail, hands trembling, voice hoarse, where he admitted, "I spent too many years inside a role, and sometimes I forgot how to be a real person." On November 10th, 1992, Chuck Connors passed away at Cedars-Sinai Hospital with no loved ones in the room, no wife, no children, no friends. Only the attending physician and an elderly nurse recorded the time of death, 3:45 a.m. There was no grand public funeral, no formal eulogy from family, just a short obituary in the local paper that ended with the line, "He was the Rifleman, but he was also a man, alone and whole." For those who loved him, that truth is hard to accept. But it's what makes the image of Chuck Connors more human and alive than ever before. Not perfect, not invincible, but broken, lonely, and real. Passing away just as America was falling in love with new icons like Tom Cruise and Denzel Washington, the name Chuck Connors nearly vanished from mainstream media. And that raised a painful question. How could a figure who once defined an entire generation of viewers fall into such silence? The answer, much like the man himself, is not simple. Chuck Connors didn't leave behind any major scandal, nor did he stage a grand comeback or make headline-grabbing statements. But his legacy lives on at a deeper level, in the collective memory of America, where the image of a lone cowboy father protecting his son from violence, injustice, and fear still echoes in the hearts of millions. The Rifleman, though not rerun as often as classic sitcoms, remains one of the first series to portray a deep father-son bond on American television. In an era when the media was still unaccustomed to tenderness from male figures, Lucas McCain dared to hug his son, cry with him, teach him forgiveness. And Chuck Connors was the first to bring that to the screen. Not sentimentally, not preachily, but with quiet, dignified strength. TV critic Richard Roper once said, "If Andy Griffith was the approachable father, then Lucas McCain was the one you looked up to, with fear, respect, and love." Chuck Connors was also one of only 13 people in American history to have played both professional NBA basketball and MLB baseball, an achievement nearly impossible to replicate. His early years on the court and field not only built physical strength, but taught him resilience, the very trait that helped him survive in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. Outside of his career, he was a quiet philanthropist. Few knew that Chuck Connors spent tens of thousands of dollars funding scholarships for Native American children, supporting homeless veterans, and contributing to wildlife protection groups. No press conferences, no plaques. He simply did what was right, just as Lucas McCain would have. But perhaps the most unforgettable and controversial moment came when he gifted a customized Winchester rifle to Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev during the latter's visit to the U.S. in 1973. It wasn't just a diplomatic gesture. It was a symbol of breaking down walls between two men who seemed destined never to shake hands, an American cowboy and a communist leader. Many criticized him, calling him a traitor. But someone once said, "Only a man with nothing left to lose would dare give away his only rifle to someone once seen as an enemy." And that's exactly it. Chuck Connors didn't care about reputation, if it meant bridging the divide between two opposing worlds. Do you agree with what he did? Today, the name Chuck Connors doesn't trend online, but he still lives on in the memories of middle-aged viewers, those who grew up with the Rifleman and with the powerful yet gentle philosophy of Lucas McCain. And on a deeper level, he lives on in every idealized father figure that came after him on American TV. From John Walton to Eric Camden, from Coach Taylor to Jack Pearson, all carry the spirit of that man who once stood in the desert, one arm around his son, the other gripping a rifle, saying little, but always doing what was right. Chuck Connors may not have a statue, but he became part of the culture, not through flashy honors or stars on a boulevard. His legacy lives where Hollywood has no control, within hearts, within memories, and within a silence filled with respect. An entire generation of viewers who watched The Rifleman once saw Chuck Connors as the embodiment of the ideal father, tall, strong, principled, yet gentle with his son. A Western hero who once befriended a Soviet leader and symbolized the very ideals of America, died alone in a house in Los Angeles, with no wife, no partner, no children at his bedside. Death came quietly, witnessed only by a nurse and a hospital. No grand funeral, no parting words from those who once called him Dad. What Chuck Connors left behind wasn't a vast fortune. It was an image, a legacy unfinished, a man who once loved his on-screen son so deeply he cried when child actor Johnny Crawford passed away. But also a man whose real children once said, he was only a father on TV. A man who played righteousness and justice, but in real life was trapped in solitude until the very end. A man who once represented the best of America, and yet was quietly abandoned by Hollywood, met with silence by loved ones, and haunted by his own memories. He was never honored at the Oscars. No eulogy came from major stars. But there are still viewers who remember him, not for perfection, but for truth. A truth that's painful, but must be told. And you? Did you once believe that TV fathers were everlasting ideals? Did you think that fame and admiration could shield someone from loneliness? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes what keeps a person alive is not the spotlight they once stood in, but what they left behind in the hearts of those who once believed in them. If you believe that truth, even when painful, is worth hearing, stay with us. Because behind every legend, there is a human being, flawed, fragile, and worthy of understanding.